Hey guys, Miss Fearing here. We are going to go ahead and look at Unit 5, Notes 2. We are going to set up the X. So this thing that we're going to do right now is going to help us in the whole rest of this unit. So it's going to be really important that you understand it. Okay, first things first, you need to ask yourself, can you take a GCF out? That is always the first thing you should ask. We just learned how to do that in our last lesson, but this is going to be so important. If you forget to do that, then it's not going to be wrong, but it's not going to be simplified all the way down, so you're going to lose points on your quiz when you do it. So first things first, always ask yourself, can I factor out a GCF? Then you're going to go ahead and you're going to set up your X. And what that means is going to look like this, just a regular X. And you are going to need to fill this in. So the top and the bottom numbers are always given to us. To find the top number, we do our A times our C, and our B goes on the bottom. Okay, bottom starts with B, so B is on the bottom. A times C is what's going to be on the top. What we're going to do then is we're going to write out all the numbers that multiply to get to the top number. So we're going to make a little chart that find our factors of the top number. And what we want to do is we want to find the pair of factors that add to the bottom number then. Okay, so you want to multiply to the top or add or subtract to the bottom number. Okay, so once you find those two numbers that multiply to the top but add or subtract to the bottom, those are going to end up being your sides of your X. And the whole point of that is because we want to rewrite this expression. So the expression that I'm giving you is ax squared plus bx plus c. So that's where the a, the b, and the c come from. And we're doing all this work because we want to break b up so that we have b into two separate terms, but that it's still equal to that first equation that we have. So words get a little confusing. Let's go ahead and look at some examples here, and it'll make things a little bit more clear for you. So first things first, we want to go ahead and we want to set up our X. So to find this, we are in ax squared plus bx plus c. So we do a times c to find the top number. Well, my a is this imaginary 1, and my c is that 8. So I'm doing 1 times 8, which is going to give me 8. B goes on bottom, so my 6 is going to go on bottom. So what we're looking for is numbers that multiply to 8, but add or subtract to 6. Okay, so I'm going to look at my factors of 8. I would start with 1 and 8, 2 and 4. 3 doesn't go into 8, and 4 is already in my list. So these are my two factors. So it's either going to be this one or this one that add or subtract to 6. Well, when you have both positives, we know we're going to add. And I know that 4 plus 2 is going to equal 6, or 2 plus 4 is still 6. So I have a 4 and a 2. And what that tells me to do is I'm going to look at this original equation that I had. I had x squared plus 6x plus 8. And all that means is I'm splitting that 6x up into 4x and 2x, these two things that I found here. So I'd still have x squared. Now I have 4x and 2x, and then I still have my plus 8 at the end. All right, let's look at example number 2 here. I want to go ahead and I forgot to ask myself on the other problem, but I'm going to ask myself here, do they have a GCF? Does this problem, do they all have something in common that I can divide out right away to make my numbers a little smaller for me? No, they can all divide by 2. So what that's going to give me, 4 divided by 2 is 2x squared. 22 divided by 2 is 11x plus 15. So now I can set up my X. I'm going to do my A times my C to get my top number. So I have 30 on top. B goes on bottom, so 11 on bottom. So I'm looking for those factors of 30 that add or subtract to 11. Since they're both positive, I know I'm adding to 11. So I have 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10. 4 does not multiply by anything to get to 30. 5 times 6. And 6 is on my list, so I know I have all of my things. So looking at the pair that would add to 11 would be 5 plus 6. So I have 5 and 6. And what that tells me to do, remember, is just split that 11x up. So I still have 2x squared plus 5x plus 6x, and then I still have my plus 15. So let's go ahead and look at this one now. Number 3, I have 4x squared minus 9. First things first, GCF. Well, 4 and 9 don't have a GCF, so I can't take anything out. But I need to find my A, my B, and my C to set up my X. And I only see 2 things here. So remember, you are in ax squared plus bx plus c. So your a is the thing with the x squared, your b is the thing with the x, and your c is the constant, the thing with nothing. So if I look at this, I have 4x squared, so that's my a value. I don't have any x's. My b would be 0. I have 0 x's, and then I have minus 9. So there's my a, b, and my c. So I'm going to do a times c, so 4 times negative 9, negative 36. B goes on bottom. So when you're doing with this, I have a negative, so that tells me I'm going to subtract these things probably, okay? So if I'm going to subtract these things, I am going to look for the factors of 36 that subtract to 0, okay? So I have 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9, 5 does not go into 36, and then I have 6 and 6. So out of all of these, the ones that add or subtract to 0, it's going to be this. I know, though, that I need to subtract to 0, so I have 6 minus 6. So that's going to split up into my 4x squared plus 6x minus 6x minus 9. And you can double check to make sure that this works out, because if I add 6x minus 6x, those go into 0, which is exactly getting me back to where I wanted to be. All right, let's look at this one. I have 3x squared minus 13x minus 30. So none of those have a GCF, so I'm going to go straight into setting up my x. So I'm going to do a times c, so 3 times negative 30 is negative 90, and b goes on bottom, so negative 13 on the bottom. So I'm going to look for factors of 90. We're going to ignore the negative, and that means we're just going to add or subtract to 13. So I have 1 and 90, 2 and 45, 3 and 30, 4 does not go into 90, 5 and 18, 6 and 15, 7 does not go into 90, 8 does not go into 90, 9 and 10, and 10's in my list, so that's all of them. So when I'm looking at this, I want to add or subtract to 13. And I should add or subtract to a negative 13. So I know that when I look here, if I do 18 minus 5, I'm going to get a positive 13, but I want negative 13. So I'm going to do 5 minus 18, and that's going to give me my negative 13 I want. So I have a 5 and a negative 18. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to split this up. So I still have my 3x squared. I have plus 5x minus 18x, and then I still have minus 30. Example number 5 here, I have x squared minus 10x plus 16. So I'm going to go ahead and see there's no GCF. Set up my x. I have a times c to get the top number, so 16. B goes on bottom, so I have a negative 10 on bottom. So I'm looking for the factors of 16 that add or subtract to a negative 10. So I have 1 and 16, 2 and 8, 3 does not go into it, and 4 and 4. So if I'm looking at these, if I want to add or subtract to negative 10, I know that I only can have a 2 and an 8. But to get it to a negative 10, if I do 2 plus 8, that's going to give me 10, which is not negative. If I do negative 2 plus 8, that's only going to give me 6, which is not what I want. If I do negative 8 plus 2, that's going to give me negative 6, which is not what I want. So you'll see here that I need an 8 and a 2, but I have a negative 8 minus, or negative 2 minus 8. Okay, so they both need to be negative, which is going to add up to my negative 10. So split these up. I have x squared minus 2x minus 8x plus 16. The negatives give everyone the most troubles, okay? So if you are stuck on the negatives, come up and chat with me and let me help you out. Here's our last example, and I think we're going to look at another negative here. So I have x squared minus 7x minus 18. No GCF, so I can set up my x right away. I have a times c, so negative 18. B goes on the bottom, negative 7. So I'm going to look for the factors of 18, ignore the negative. So I have 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. 4 doesn't go in, 5 doesn't go in, and 6 is already in my list. So I'm going to add or subtract to a negative 7. Well, looking at these, I know that I can use the 9 and the 2. So if I do 2 minus 9, I'm going to get negative 7 like I want, right? I want a negative 7, so I have a 2 minus 9. Split up that middle term, then I have an x squared plus 2x minus 9x minus 18. All right, so again, the negatives tend to throw people off. So if you have questions on any of this, come up, chat with me before moving on to your assignment.